Hey, welcome to our podcast today. And today we're interviewing Rob Garry. He's the CEO and founder of SenseLinks, which is an IoT solutions company, and they focus on wireless monitoring and other tracking solutions. Today we're going to talk about how automated refrigeration improves medication safety for the medical industry. So, hey, Rob, why do hospitals and medical facilities need a refrigeration solution?
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff. The reason they need a refrigeration solution is they have to keep specific medications, testing samples, and vaccines at specific temperatures or ranges of temperatures so that it'll work when the customer takes them. And the other thing is that right now, when they're monitoring these temperatures, they're often using highly skilled, highly paid nurses to go and consistently fill out logs to make sure the temperatures are in the right range. And it's very timely right now because, as we all know, COVID-19 vaccines are out and they need to be handled in a very specific manner.
How do they need to be handled, Rob?
Well, all three COVID-19 vaccines need to be stored at varying, each one has its own freezing temperature range that it must be in as it's traveling through the cold chain process. And if these temperatures aren't maintained through every stage of the journey, then the vaccine loses its effectiveness. And then once it's actually at its location, it's then thawed out, and then it must be stored at usually temperatures like between 36 and 46 degrees Fahrenheit. And it can only be held in that for up to 30 days. So it has to be used in 30 days. It can't go below 36 degrees or above 46. So it's very important that you're consistently monitoring those temperatures. And what I just gave you is specific to COVID-19 vaccines.
Right. And it's interesting with all the stuff we see on the news about people running to get extra vaccines, like that totally makes sense now.
Yeah.
So are there some laws and regulations that government is putting on the hospitals and medical facilities about the storage and handling of drugs?
Yeah. Yes, the Food and Drug Administration, for instance, sets a whole series of requirements for the way medications are handled, the way they're stored, the way they're logged, the way they're audited. And then you have CDC guidelines like we're all used to hearing about during the COVID-19 crisis about the steps that should be taken to handle the medications, the handling and all of that stuff. So that's it. And then there's other organizations that are highly sought after for their accreditations. And so that's important too.
It's interesting. You mentioned, the life of a medication if it's not stored at the proper temperature. I would imagine there's an enormous return on investment for a hospital, considering how expensive medications can be. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've read about all of the COVID-19 vaccinations that had to be thrown out. It's happened all over the country for them not being handled properly. So that's a return on investment. It's being able to use all of the medications that you acquire and that you want to make sure you're able to use them so you can bill insurances and things like that. So it's a tremendous loss when you have to throw out medications.
Well, and I imagine it also takes a lot of nursing time away from patients if they're having to fill out logs and keep track of a refrigerator is at a certain temperature a certain number of times a day.
It is an incredible loss there because you're paying nurses a lot on an hourly basis. And what you want them providing medical care. You want them taking care of patients. So you don't have, so they're focused on patient care, not on filling out logs. And what our system does, it allows you to receive those logs electronically. They're 100% accurate, and you don't have to put labor into getting them like you do having nurses fill out logs.
Well, and I just want to go back to one thing, and it's just the business guy side of me, right? If a nurse is busy checking temperatures, she's not administering care and procedure that gets billed for on the other end from the hospital. So it would be a double-edged sword, right? They would lose potentially some revenue, or it would be deferred. And then at the same time, it's costing them money to have a nurse spend the 5 minutes going around to refrigerators every hour or however often they have to go search.
You definitely will have less billable services going out if you have nurses taking care of paper logs instead of administering care to patients. That's a great point.
I'm sure there's also some other companies out there that are providing similar or solutions that are in this family. Um, if I'm shopping for a refrigeration monitoring solution, what are some of the things that I would want to make sure it had?
All right. So what I think is really important is having a standalone system, right? If you're using a Wi-Fi system that other types of traffic is going over, you can have it getting overloaded. You can have it fail and go down, and that could have catastrophic results. So it's really important that you have a standalone system that is secure. Another part of it is really important is having a system that has a really easy to use user interface that is easy to understand, can get hold of many people at the same time, whether they're in the facility or outside of the facility, to let them know when there's a problem so it can be fixed as soon as possible. And it's easy to understand the reports. And then it's also important, I think, to have expandability, because you make this initial investment. It's nice if you can add sensors on to take care of more situations outside of medications.
Yeah, so I guess you're alluding to, like, hospitals and medical facilities that have restaurants or cafeterias, and they've got refrigerator units in there, and where the impact is not quite the same as when a medication goes bad. But I would imagine there still are some laws that they have to comply for around food safety.
They have laws they have to comply for food safety, Jeff. And also the other thing is, when your food spoils, you lose a lot of money too. So you want to make sure your food is safe and it's stored at the correct temperatures. And you also want to make sure if there's a failure in your freezer or your refrigeration system, if you're alerted right away, you can get a refrigeration repair person out there right away and save the refrigeration system and thus save the food too. So that's really important. And then there's other things you can add too, Jeff. You can add like a panic button system. So nurses have a button around their neck, and if a situation occurs in a hospital room where they feel that they or the patient are in distress, they can push a button and get help there right away too. There's a lot of other situations you can do too. You can be monitoring for leaks. You can be monitoring for pest control. So there's a whole bunch of uses that this one application will allow you to do simply by adding sensors.
I love that. I hate buying a potato masher, because that's about the only thing I can do with it is just mash potatoes, right? So I love it when I get something like a Cuisinart that I can chop and slice and mix, and right. This to me sounds like that solution, where I'm not just getting one product to do one thing, but I've actually got, and I'm going to say, it's future-proofing the environment, because as additional needs arise, I can just bolt on another application.
Yeah, Jeff, and it can help all sorts of different divisions of a hospital or medical facility, right? Because you got one group that's in charge of the medication, another group, for food delivery and food preparation, and someone else is concerned about the facility and the bathrooms, and someone else is, got another responsibility. So this really takes care of many different areas of a hospital.
Oh, sure. Hospital's no different than a big hotel. In fact, probably obviously a lot more complicated. And I would imagine if you get a leaky toilet in a hospital and no one notices, that could be a really big problem.
Yeah, it's often gone on for a long time before you realize it. And again, more money lost.
Well, hey, Rob, this has been really informative. Is there anything else you'd like to say or share before we wrap up today?
No, I really appreciate you having me on your podcast, Jeff. And one of the really cool things we've experienced is just being part of the solution with COVID-19 vaccines to give our country relief. It's been real exciting to be part of that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Rob. Look forward to having you on the next one. You take care.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Have a great day.
You bet.